Healthcare Sunday on 104.7 KJUL, sponsored by True Care Treatment Centers. Now, your host, Warren Zysman.
Happy Sunday, everybody. This is Healthcare Sunday on 104.7 FM, KJUL, the Jewel of the Valley. This is your host, Warren Zysman of Healthcare Sunday. I'm really honored today. We have Angela Reyes here from the Shade Tree. Angela Reyes is originally from Bakersfield, California. She has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration and educational counseling from California State University, Bakersfield. She's been in the social service field 19 years, working in group homes, county mental health, state parole, foster family agency, shelter work, domestic violence shelters. And she's been in Las Vegas with her husband and 2 children for the last 5 years. And she is one of the folks in leadership at one of the most amazing organizations here in Las Vegas, the Shade Tree, who provides shelter for victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. Both issues that we know are major problems here in our community. And you're at the front lines helping to help people who are really in need and in very fragile situations. So I want to welcome you to the show, Angela.
Good morning. Thank you.
So, Angela, maybe start off. Some of our listeners know a lot about the Shade Tree. Some may have never heard about it before. So maybe just kind of give us an overview of the type of work and services you're doing over there.
Okay. So the Shade Tree has been in existence. This year's our 30th year. We've been on the corner of West Owens and Main Street for 19 of those years. We offer services to homeless women and children in crisis. Obviously, that includes domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, elder abuse, unaccompanied minors. So we're able to provide wraparound services, case management services, job development services, clinic. We have a full clinic in the building where clients are able to get health care. We offer a pediatric clinic, an adult clinic, and then various referrals to other, ongoing needs for diabetes or whatever may need for the client. We also have life skills classes that we offer 7 days a week. So we're able to do anything from budgeting to yoga to, self-care, making sure clients are able to have all the amenities to be able to take care of themselves, mental health, domestic violence classes. So anywhere from that. We also have a pet component. Noah's Animal House is a agency that we work closely with. They're on our property. So we're able to house pets of our clients. Anything at all, fish, birds, dogs, cats, what have you, whatever clients are bringing with them, we're able to utilize Noah's to keep the animal with the family. We also do a children's activity center where we're able to enroll school-age children into their school of origin or within our area within the first 48 hours that they're there. So we offer numerous services 7 days a week. We provide 24-hour-a-day intakes. So if clients are in need of housing, they can come at any time during the day or night, and we'll be able to do an assessment. So lots of services in a very busy side of town. We're obviously in the homeless corridor, so we're able to offer services to women and children in that area.
Fantastic. So if somebody listening in right now maybe could benefit from help. Maybe they're in a domestic violence situation where there's violence in the household. They're looking to get help, maybe to leave, or it's a human trafficking situation. How's the best way for them to get in contact with you folks?
We try to make sure, obviously, number one, safety. If clients are looking for immediate help, the first thing that we recommend is obviously to call 911. If for some reason they're unable to call 911 and they're just they're in the car, they're ready to leave now, we ask that they immediately come to the shelter, and we will allow them to come in, get off the street, get out of the view of anybody, and be able to come into our building and do an intake. Because of the fact that we offer 24-hour service, it's nice because it doesn't matter what time it is. We also work extremely closely with Metro, where they're able to bring in clients at any hour of the night. We also work with Seeds of Hope, who works with just basic human trafficking victims. They are finding them anywhere in the middle of the night, in the morning, and they're able to bring them to our shelter immediately.
Wonderful.
So we do.
So
work.
people could literally just come to the shelter
Absolutely.
and access services right
immediately.
away. They can also call the shelter?
Yeah, they can call the shelter. Any organization that they may be working with, if they're doing any other services like mental health pieces, or they're working with a doctor, the doctor can call, or somebody can call for them, and we'll absolutely ensure that they get to our facility safely. We also work closely with RTC. A lot of people don't know that the buses will actually take you to a safe shelter. If you happen to be fleeing a domestic violence situation or a safety issue, then the RTC will literally make sure that you get to their main station, and they will bring you to our agency.
So what do you do? If someone's in a domestic violence situation, they need transportation, they just go on the bus and say,
I need a safe place. If they claim that they need a safe place, the RTC bus driver will get them to the RTC station, and they will get a ride directly to a safe shelter. And 9 times out of 10, it's the Shade Tree.
Wow, so that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anybody out there is looking for help, you're not sure how to get there, literally all you have to do is hop on a bus, tell them you need a safe place.
Yes.
They'll take you to the main station and arrange for you to get a ride directly for safe shelter for you. And if it's you and your children will also get that ride. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So let's maybe talk a little bit about domestic violence.
Okay.
Some of our listeners know a lot about it, some of it don't. What are some typical situations? What are some of the barriers to people getting help?
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest things statistically is about 1 in 4 women have been victims of domestic violence, and 1 in 7 men have been victims of domestic violence. Because we are a shelter for women and children, we obviously want to make sure that we're serving those groups. We'll also assist with linkage for any other resources for males, but typically we house women and children. So it's difficult to say. I think the reasons for domestic violence vary, but again, it's power and control. I think things are red flags here and there, and maybe some people don't recognize those red flags because it's familial or generational. I've watched my grandparents or my parents, and this is just something that is in my life every single day, and I don't necessarily identify that as domestic violence, but it absolutely are red flags. Controlling of the finances. You're not able to handle or manage your own money. You're only allowed to do certain things. You can't wear makeup. You can't go anywhere alone. Just things like that, or a lot of jealousy, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be physical. Mental abuse, nobody's going to want you but me. This is not good if you leave. Nobody's going to believe you. Nobody's going to, the isolation, the power and control. Those are all huge forms of domestic violence. And I think sometimes, even in the elderly community, we see a lot of clients that come to us in those domestic situations because they're being cared for by a loved one. And they're taking their Social Security checks, or they're taking their medication. Those are all forms of domestic violence. Those are forms of abuse and neglect. Those are issues of power and control. So, and I don't think a lot of people are able to identify themselves as a victim because they don't want to get anybody in trouble. They don't want to involve the authorities or anybody. So they tend to stay in those situations, and it becomes an ongoing generational issue, as we've seen.
And it also seems that sometimes some of the symptoms that you're talking about in terms of the emotional abuse are things that eventually over time do escalate to physical violence.
Absolutely.
Too.
Absolutely. And we see that. We see young ladies that come in with black eyes. And, we just heard on the, news very recently, the gentleman that killed his wife with a baseball bat, and the teenage boy ran to the corner to call 911. And, just things that escalate arguments, heated discussions. We tend to see a rise during the winter months when it's cold and people are trying to get safe and warm and may not have the resources to do those things. We see the hot summer months, people are agitated, people, kids are home from school, just different situations where people's emotions are up and down can also, contributing factors, along with substance abuse, along with mental health. All of those things are key components to what we see every day.
It's interesting how you brought up the jealousy before. I would think, sometimes in relationships, people, maybe if their partner seems very jealous of them, they may,
they love them more.
They love them more.
Right.
And, I like the way you framed it, is that actually it's about power and control, and that's a form of domestic violence. Can you maybe just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot of times that we see, again, when it's generational. So when someone's being extremely possessive, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that, I don't want anybody to look at you, I don't want anybody to take you away from me, things like that sound really nice and sweet, and they're flattering. But at the end of the day, it's a form of isolation. It's a form of keeping you away from other people. It's only me and you. We're in this together, and it becomes overwhelming and constant, that at the end of the day you recognize that you have no relationships with anybody but that person. And it becomes can become a very dangerous situation.
That's very helpful. You mentioned substance abuse.
Yes.
Or sometimes, I imagine sometimes people are already using drugs before they get into a domestic violence situation. And then I think, I've read recently in the news that sometimes some of the human trafficking and so forth, people get other people hooked on drugs.
Sure.
And that becomes part of it. So maybe talk about some of the different types of substance abuse, how it relates to that power and control and domestic violence dynamic.
Sure. We work with, human trafficking victims, and a lot of the times the young ladies, to deal with that stuff, they're forced to use drugs. They're intoxicated. They're just numb, completely numb. So by the time they get to our agency, they are now addicted and need other services on top of, mental health, our counseling, therapy, psychiatry, on top of dealing with trauma and ongoing victimization. I think there's just layers and so many facets, which is huge, because as an organization for shelter, since we are a shelter, we're looking for those resources in the community, because those other agencies are, they're the number one resource. Those are who we go to. So partnerships and working with other organizations so that we're able to manage all the facets that come with a human trafficking victim or any type of victim.
So interesting how you bring that up. So they use it almost like a form of self-medication.
Sure.
To help deal with their situation. Human trafficking, we hear a lot about it. I think most people typically think about it in terms of sex trafficking. Is there other types of human trafficking?
Sure. We see labor trafficking, specifically with clients who may not have paperwork or documents. So they're brought here to do forms of work for very little to no pay. Or they're not, they're having to do these things just to eat and just to get by. We're seeing it in all ages, children as well.
Oh, wow. It's terrible.
Yeah.
In terms of sex trafficking, I think a lot of times folks think of it being folks from other countries who are being, brought into the country and, for sex trafficking, maybe under false premises and stuff like that. I've had an opportunity to come out to your facility, and one of the things that I saw was a lot of the folks who are getting help are actually don't fit into that category at all. There are people from here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and all over the country who were born here, and have been sex trafficked to this area.
Yeah, and a lot of people that they may know or have semi-formed relationships with. A lot of people meet folks online. They come out, my cousin lived here and I'm coming out. We're going to do this. They want me to come work for them. And it ends up being, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to date these guys. We're going to do these calls. We're going to go to these clubs and we're going to just kind of hang out with these guys. And it ends up becoming more than they expected. And we absolutely see lots of folks from, it's universal. So it's all over here in Nevada. We get people from California and New York and just Florida, all over the place that are coming here because we're having a good time and we get wrapped up with someone or we meet someone and it becomes something that we didn't anticipate it to be. And we're talking all ages again. There's no discrimination on race and color and age in human trafficking, unfortunately. And it's just becoming more and more noticeable. And it's a humongous epidemic. It's everywhere.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. So let's say somebody, living in California meets a guy online here in Las Vegas, and they think they're coming to go on a date,
or they're gonna go, go on a date, or they're gonna go to a club, or they're gonna just kind of hang out, and it turns out to be something else, or they.
So give me like a typical scenario.
So we've had clients that come in and I met a guy online, we became really close, we have a relationship, I'm his girlfriend. And now we're kind of running out of money. So he's asking me now, maybe we should be doing other things to get money. Will you help me? I have people that are willing to pay us, if you go out with them or if you would dance for them, maybe we could do this together. And it becomes a job. And now you're being forced to do these things to maintain, to eat or to keep the lights on or, whatever the boyfriend is asking you to do.
So they lure them, they get emotionally invested with them.
Exactly.
And the whole time the boyfriend's plan is to turn them out for prostitution.
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. It's amazing. I don't think I ever saw, thought about it like that.
Sure, they form the relationships and it becomes a very manipulative situation. And we see that a lot at our building and a lot of the clients that we work with. And we have to remember as well, our job as an agency isn't to tell these young ladies that, these men are wrong or they're bad or, they truly are emotionally invested. They love them. They're same thing with the domestic violence situation. This is their husband or their boyfriend. They're in love. They're invested. It's not my job as a director to be involved in saying you're never going to see that person again. I'm not going to allow you to do that. That's not my job. Our job is to ensure safety and provide resources to that client. If that client is interested in maintaining a relationship, then we give the resources to be able to do that.
I know in my practice in helping folks with domestic violence, one of the things that we learn as therapists is that people who are victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, often, as you're saying, they love their abuser. Mm-hmm. And I think for folks who aren't used to interacting with individuals who are victims of domestic violence or human trafficking, that might be a little surprising.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I know you've touched on it a little bit in terms of someone who's a victim of abuse. How do they love somebody who's hurting them or hurting their children?
Sure. And I think, again, that goes back to the isolation piece, the power and control. If I'm taking you out of a situation where you have your mother or your father or your siblings and your friends, if I'm isolating you and it's an ongoing thing and it's just me and you're depending on me and something happens, you made me do this, you made me so angry or you made me so jealous that this is kind of like, this is the punishment or the consequence of what happened. And I'm sorry, it becomes a cycle of abuse. Here we are, we had an argument, I hit you, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And then this cycle just continues to happen. And unfortunately, it can increasingly get worse and worse. The degree of the abuse becomes more, and, we up the ante, for lack of a better term, and we're constantly doing this cycle. So, but if I say something, I'm going to get him in trouble. If I make a police report, I'm going to get him in trouble. And then what? I have nobody. I've completely isolated myself. I'm not listening to my sister who told me not to go back to him because he's hit me before. I've talked to my friends and they're like, we're not hanging out with you because you're still with this guy. So now I have no one. So that love for that person is, well, they've fed me, for all these months or years or what have you. And that's the only person I can depend on. I have to stay here. And if there are children involved, it's, what do I do as livelihood? I would rather stay with him and be there than tell somebody I'm being abused, ask for someone to help me, and I have nothing. So it again, the manipulation, the tactics, the cycle of abuse, it just becomes harder and harder and harder to leave. So in our agency, we tend to see approximately 7 to 10 times for a client to return to our agency, 7 to 10 times before they truly decide that I'm leaving my abuser for good. So it's constant. So again, our job as an agency and anybody else working with this, population of clients, that it's not our job to place judgment. It's our job to be there, the resources to be there.
So your organization is always welcoming people for
Yes.
care, even if they've been there before.
Yes.
And it wasn't that successful.
Yes.
There was a problem.
Yeah, or
So
they went back.
So I think that's
for
important. If some of our listeners have been there at the Shade Tree and got in help before, you're always welcome to come back.
Yes.
And you'll find people there who will help love you back to health, and are there ready and willing to help you. I think one of the things that you did that was really great is you connected all the dots. How you were just talking about the anger, the control, the isolation, and how that makes the individual who's the victim really dependent in terms of maybe a place to live, food to eat,
Absolutely.
providing everything. And then when it does escalate to violence, the abuser turns to the victim and says, well, it was your fault. Look what you did to me.
Sure.
And who does the abuser have to, who does the victim have to turn to other than
Back
the
to
abuser,
the abuser,
right?
Absolutely.
So they tend to believe it because without them, a situation's been created where they may feel like they have nothing or they've lost everything. Is that the dynamic that
Yes.
typically holds people in these situations, even if
Absolutely.
they're being violently beaten or emotionally abused, and even if it's something that's killing them, that their kids are seeing this or their kids are experiencing the abuse, to stay in this situation? Because I think people have a hard time understanding why people stay.
Sure. And I think that's absolutely right. And again, if we're coming from generational abuse, if we're coming from generations of not having a father figure, if I have my children, at least they have their dad. I didn't have my dad there when I was a child. So we start kind of justifying the reasons that we remain in a relationship, and we justify why we continue to do that. And it becomes extremely difficult when you no longer have that self-esteem, and you no longer have support, and you no longer have those people that are willing to help you. I think that's just one of the biggest things. They catch you at your lowest of your lows. And they continue to do this cycle with you over and over. And I think that's one of the biggest components of the Shade Tree and what we're able to do, those wraparound services. Hey, I don't care if you have nothing. I have clothing that I'm able to offer you. I have hygiene supplies that I can give you. I will give you a bus pass to get where you need to go. I will make sure that your kids are enrolled in school and safe. I will make sure that we can help you if you've never had a job before, have never provided for yourself. Let me show you, let me enroll you in all of these wraparound services. So I think that's why it's so important that we as the shelter, again, connect with other partners and agencies in the community where we can truly support that client, have them rebuilding those relationships. Maybe they do want to reach out now to a family member or a friend. Hey, I left. This is what I'm doing. And you just kind of build yourself back up and create that safety net once again with family and friends, and just again try to reintegrate them back into their normal lives that they had prior.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you said with all the wraparound services, the clothes, the quality housing. I know recently you took me on a tour, and there were some really big renovations that went on. Some of the casinos helped out. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that, so people can get an idea that you're just not a. I think people get this imagery of a shelter. I think if they hear some of the work that's been done and who's been helping, I think it gives them a little insight on the high quality of service and care they get there.
Absolutely. So like I said, the Shade Tree's been at that physical building for just about 19 years. So you can imagine just at your own home, the normal wear and tear, with a family of 4 in a home. Imagine thousands and thousands of people using the restrooms and the showers and the beds and everything that we supply. So it becomes, one of those things. The priority would be obviously clients. Our care for the clients and safety of the clients has always been priority.
So you've had some big renovations.
So we've had humongous renovations.
Who's done it for you?
The Wynn donated on $2 million worth of renovations, along with Caesars and I want to say hundreds of other people and partners in the community, builders and, union workers and things that have volunteered their time and hours and manpower and have completely renovated our entire building. We've had people from other agencies come in that we work with on a daily basis and walk in and said, I didn't even realize I was at the same place.
Wow. So it is a beautiful, beautiful place.
Gorgeous.
A safe
building.
place.
Yes.
And one of the best things is if you do need help, Angela, I've also met Becky.
Yep.
And
our new executive director, Linda Perez.
We want to welcome her to the team.
Yes.
And also the wonderful staff. I've had an opportunity to do trainings with some of them.
Yeah.
They really have people working there who care, who are very talented, bring so much to the table, and they can really offer folks in the community a lot of help. We're going to have to wrap up in the next few minutes.
Okay.
I feel like we could talk about this for the next 4 hours.
Exactly.
Real quick, what are some tips and advice if someone's listening to the show, they or someone they know needs help? What are some signs, symptoms, or things that steps they should take? I know you said they could take the bus, they can make a phone call. They might not be ready to do that, but what are some things they could do to help somebody in a domestic violence situation?
So one of the best things is we do have a website. So we do have a website where you can actually reach out for information. If you're just looking for information, you just had a few questions, you wanted to see if there was a cost or a fee, which there is not, feel free to use the website and reach out to the info. We also have an escape button. So let's say a woman who is in need and is kind of just looking at her options and you need to kind of get out of that website really quickly, click that escape button and the entire website will disappear from any browser or anything that we have set up. So that's one of the biggest things is educating yourself. If you feel that you are truly in need, just take a look, see what's out there, make a phone call, send an email, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I think you provided so much information about a community problem and issue that you are on the front lines helping and really have saved and many families and love them back to health. We want to thank you for the good work you're doing, Angela.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I also want to thank our sponsor, True Care Treatment Centers. If you or a loved one have a mental health or substance abuse issue, you can reach them on their 24/7 hotline at 702-373-7407. That's 702-373-7407. Again, if you or a loved one have a mental health or substance abuse problem, or you need someone to just talk to, feel free to give our 24/7 hotline at 702-373-7407. Have a great Sunday, everyone, and happy Mental Health Awareness Month.
This has been Healthcare Sunday on 104.7 KJUL, sponsored by True Care Treatment Centers.